Hey everybody, I'm Jody Vance.
And I'm George-Affleck.
And it's time
for... Here we go again. UnSpun.
Please tell me that Dolly. We're not talking.
That's a little nod to Dolly Parton, who got $100 million from Jeff Bezos. For whatever cause she wants. Last year he gave it to what's his face from CNN, which is anyways. Yes. So that's not why I sang that though, of course.
You sang that because
well, we have a mayor in Vancouver, right? A new mayor, and I'm a little disappointed already, to be honest, because it's something that's really important to me, which is making yourself available as a politician. And I was watching Global News yesterday, and I don't even know what the story was, but they said the mayor was not available for comment on this. And I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, it was the first council meeting, really? Like, really? It's just kind of disappointing, to say the least, because we have had 2 mayors in a row now that were very unavailable to media. I don't need a third one. Thanks very much. Can you just make sure Ken Sim is available to the media, please?
I'm going to echo your sentiments in that I hope that this is not a sign of what's to come. And I'm sure that the new mayor is getting a pretty significant crash course, as you've mentioned so many times on this podcast, of just how complex City Hall can be, and that you don't just come in and run it like a business and make the changes that you think need to be changed. Like, he's probably getting a pretty significant crash course in just how much bureaucracy exists, yes. Just how much red tape is there.
Oh, that's right. That's what it was about. It was about the 100 cops. That's what he didn't. It's his plank issue, and he didn't want to talk about it to the media after he won.
That's a problem.
It's a problem.
That's a problem.
Even if you say it's going to be more challenging than I thought. I just got in here. I'm looking at going, crap, this place is like a nightmare. We got to figure this out. But it's still my goal. That's all you have to say. I'm going to do what I can do. I'm going to do whatever I can to make this happen. That's all you have to say to avoid the media on that issue. Sorry, Ken Sim. No, this is your baby. You can't flop it off. It's yours. You own it.
Anyways, I'm going to say
to get out of the gate to have global TV against you, getting to say that was unavailable, that is like a slap in the face by media to you, because usually they'll just won't talk about it, right? They'll talk the story, but if they're kind of pissed off any media, they'll say that, right? That's their little dig.
We reached out for comment. Yep. Mm-hmm. When somebody stonewalls you, and believe me, I've spent the last 5 years talking about Kennedy Stewart and saying, and we reached out to the mayor, and he is not available. And my particular favorite, which was also a Gregor Robertson issue as well. I don't know why they're afraid to talk to people in the media.
It's scary.
Unless they're
I know that.
1 second.
I did it a lot.
Unless it's their select favorites, which does very little for their that's just not a good move. But what I hope here for Ken Sim, because he definitely campaigned as somebody who would be remarkably different than, like you said, the last 2 mayors in the city. And I just want to hit home what you said, George, because I think it's very, very important to only use unavailable for comment very sparingly. At the very least, you get on a quick call with the assignment desk and you offer a quote. If you don't have time for a camera to come to you, if you don't have time to make yourself available to go on the radio at a certain time, even if you don't have time to do a pre-tape because you're juggling, you're spinning so many plates, you must offer a quote that addresses the question. You only get to spin it as a plate if you actually show up to do the interview, whether it be on camera, on radio, or for print. And I think what you said is so important, in that unavailable for comment is not the way any politician should run their office, nor should it be straight out of the gate after the first council meeting.
Well, Amanda said this line. I had never heard this line before. Maybe everybody else listening, watching has, and I said, "Oh my God, yeah, totally." And it's a cliche, but it usually is used in a positive way. But in this case, she used it as, and Amanda's my partner, as you know, and works with us. But she said, "Start as you mean to go on." And usually it's a positive, like you start, do something, and then this is what we're going to do. In this case,
I'm going to tell you where it usually is, though. Women know that. Women know that because women tend to go into relationships giving a whole bunch of loose, no big
Oh
deal.
yeah.
Sure, you can go golfing with your buddies every weekend. I'll take care of doing the laundry. Don't worry, I'll cook dinner. Don't worry, da da da. Start as you plan to continue is advice that is often shared woman to woman when we're
Really?
getting
Okay.
into a
All right.
relationship. Well, you don't want to be 4 months into a relationship and then turn to your significant other and go, by the way, do your own laundry, right? And then be mad about it. And then dudes are like, but you've been doing it for 4 months. I didn't ask you to do it. Like,
I do all the
right?
laundry
Like,
in
but
my
that's,
house.
and I love that about you.
Amanda loves to quote me because I say this. I said this at the beginning of our relationship. I said, I'm not going to change. I'm too old. I was 39, I think, at the time. I'm way too old to change. And she said, I'm not going to change. So if you don't like who I am, I did eventually change. I became a much better man. And no, I don't know if I but she likes to bring it up and saying, oh, is this where you're the part you're going to remind me where you're not going to change because I'm being a jerk or something? This is where you're going to remind me when you said that time you're not going to change. I'm like, yeah, I think I'll bring that up now. I did give you that warning. Start as you mean to go on. Once.
Start as you mean to go on. Hey, I've got a question.
Yes.
Because your PR, your crisis communications, curve communications does all kinds of, I have a problem. What is my solution? Or I have a message. How do I get it across? I thought of you immediately and was very pleased that we were going to be recording UnSpun Podcast today when I saw the story of how people are reacting to the news that Ken Sim will be gone for 1 week, basically seconds after being sworn in as mayor of Vancouver. Mm-hmm. He's off to the World Cup. How did you take that?
It's really bad optics. First of all, it's Qatar, which has its own controversial issues.
We'll get into that later.
But I would say, I know he's bought the tickets himself. It's a private trip. There's no government money going to this, so there's that. So that's in his mind. I imagine that's, a logical sort of reason to go anyways, because he had planned it before he got elected. But it's like Ken Sim advice day today. Sorry, you're now mayor. It's a different world order for you, buddy. And the optics are terrible. There's the politics in the country that you're going to. But you're going to miss council meetings in the first quarter of your first year, when there's so much to do.
Missing the police board. Missing first meeting with the budget. Yeah,
it's just like, it's really, I know it's pretty amazing to get tickets to the World Cup. I imagine it's really complicated and really, really expensive. And I'm not sure if he's going with his kids. I don't know. And
his wife.
Hey, there's a reason I didn't run for mayor.
I'm going to tell you this.
Screws up your life.
Yeah, here's how I consume this. Here's how I consume this. Number one, very unfortunate timing-wise. Number two, being somebody in sports and sports broadcast and doing previews for the World Cup, because, full disclosure, I'm the Canadian correspondent for Al Jazeera English, who our main broadcast headquarters is in Qatar, and in London and in Washington, D.C. So, I've got a point of view on this that is like, he would have bought those tickets after losing the last election.
Oh, really?
This is how far back. You don't decide to go to the World Cup, get tickets and get a place to stay, never mind get a flight there. Everybody in the world who loves soccer is going to Qatar. This is like having the Olympics in Russia. People would still go, even knowing, the horrifying things that Russia continues to do and might do to you if you step out of line. It doesn't matter in the world of sport. So I'm just going to give it that sort of perspective. When I first heard it, I'm like, ooh. And then I thought, well, we've all been working remotely in ways that have been pretty meaningful. Yeah. This is extra remote, but how much, what is the expectation here? And I look at it and think, there's enough wrong with this city right now that if it were me, and it's not, I'm not Ken Sim. So with all the caveats I just put there saying, hey, he's human too. If it were me, I'd cancel the trip and stay, because this city is in crisis. It's in crisis.
100%. It is. But time's on his side. It's early in the mandate. People will forget this as long as he excels over the next few years on every other front and doesn't make
as long as he makes himself available for comment.
And he makes himself available for comment on issues that he put forward. Pretty simple stuff. Ken. Sorry, Mr. Mayor, buddy. And can
I
you
had I don't know if you,
can you wear a proper shirt to council meetings, please? Have some respect for the chamber. He was wearing like a polo shirt to council. I'm sorry, I'm not like, it's not even an old-fashioned thing. It's actually a respect for the institution that is government, and I feel. I'm sorry, but I feel like there's a disrespect when you don't wear proper attire into this what is a sacred. It's a chamber. It's literally called a chamber. It's supposed to be a very important place. And okay, no tie, fine, but to wear a short sleeve, basically polo shirt, I thought was surprisingly uninformed, misinformed, badly guided. Like, guys, come on. Gregor Robertson wore a tie every council meeting he was ever at. And I think it provides a respect that and a feeling of trust in your mayor. Clothing matters. I'm sorry, I used to sell clothes. Big steel man in the 80s. And,
big
clothing matters.
man, big shoulder pad, double breasted.
Yeah,
Oh
that's
yeah.
right. Daniel Hector.
Danielle Hector, Le
Yes.
Cloutier, French cut denim. I'm going to say wearing a polo shirt in chambers kind of feels like wearing a polo shirt to a business function black tie level, like when you're going to a gala and you show up in your cargo shorts kind of thing. But at the same time, after watching what went down at the legislature a couple of years ago with regard to women wearing sleeveless, like in the middle of hot days and going in and wearing finery, but not having, the arms covered in a way. So I'm hesitant to say that the way it's always been, it has to be the way it always goes. But at the same time, I get to your point. I think there's a way to do that. If he wants to be the every person, I can't believe we spent the first 12 minutes of this podcast talking about Ken Sim, but here we are. I think if he wants to project the I am every person, and this is, and having seen him put himself forward for the last few years, he does have a certain style that is his own. But you know what? Make sure that it is playing to the level of what the office asks of you. Like you said, I think there is some pomp and circumstance that is associated with our political realm that should be respected within, certain guidelines. I know Michael Geller and Charles Gauthier, a couple of very active Twitter folk, like Michael was like, I can't believe he's going to have a portrait with no tie. And Charles Gauthier was like, I've got a whole bunch of ties if you want them because I haven't worn one since blah, blah, blah. Like it's very subjective for people to have opinions on what others wear. And I think, like you said, if you're invited to a black tie wedding and you show up in your cargo shorts, that's not really respectful to the people who invited you. So that's how I look at it.
Communications advice, if anything. It's not based on quality of clothes. It's really about a perception of where of your stature, and not in a snobby way. It's really meant to be respectful to the chamber itself and the seriousness of the role that you are playing. And I just feel like, being casual in all other settings. I mean, if you want to go and be casual, if you're, unless you're, running for Senate or Congress if you're down in the States, where
we'll get into that later. Let's go to the police. Let's go to the police. Surrey Police Services. We're getting too in the weeds here. Surrey Police Services. Lots of controversy there. I'm not sure if you saw in Steele and Vance, Linda and I last night. We had a couple of conversations. We just decided, okay, this is awkward because her husband is Norm Lipinski. Her husband is the chief of the Surrey Police. So we were talking about how this is a big story. If she talks about it, she gets attacked. If she doesn't talk about it, she gets attacked. So we're going to have the awkward conversation. And we actually talked about it. We talked it through, and boy, she knows what she's talking about. She's Linda freaking Steele. And then the next segment after that, because I didn't want her to be alone in her awkward, we got to the VPD discussion about hiring 100 new officers, right? That being Ken Sim's, like you said, plank issue. And guess who the VPD recruitment officer is? My cousin Cindy. So we had her on. So we went from talking about Norm at the Surrey Police Services to talking with Cindy about hiring police. And we didn't talk about defund the police and what policing is like. And
you did talk
we
about
did.
Nickelback.
Oh my God. But I
Don't
want
get
your
me started on
perspective
that.
on the Surrey Police Services, George-Affleck. What do you see happening there with Brenda Locke basically saying, stop everything. I don't care. That's why I was elected. This has to stop. What do you think's happening here?
Well, I mean, I think Keith Baldry has nailed it, that there's a union issue here for sure. That's going to create a bit of a nightmare for Surrey. And so I think maybe this is what Diane Watts was alluding to on election night. Diane and I were the pundits, or whatever you call us, experts on CTV. And
You did great,
when
by the way.
Oh, thanks. The ratings were pretty amazing. I should get a raise. She said, I think she probably understood this, is that they probably should use that other police force and reconfigure it for different purposes. And that's probably, it sounds like that's where we're heading. We're going to have the RCMP and this other organization together because Surrey needs more help. They have a lot of issues is a really fast growing city, even faster than Vancouver. And that growing pains are something the RCMP clearly have a problem keeping up with when it comes to staffing, when it comes to being, boots on the ground. I hate that term, but being out there in the community in a massive way. And so this is an opportunity, I think, and I think that's where I think Diane's point and I think Keith Baldry's point are probably where we're heading for Surrey. It's going to be costly for the taxpayers. Was going to be costly. You and I talked about this for 2 years, 3 years. I predicted that they were underestimating the number by 4 times at least on the costs, knowing what it costs in Vancouver. So
just to give the listener who maybe isn't as up to speed on what the numbers are, because Mike Farnworth chimed in on this. Obviously, this isn't up to Brenda Locke. This isn't up to Surrey City Council. This is a provincial matter that the Solicitor General has, and the Minister of Public Safety has a big say in what happens next with regard to policing in Surrey. And he referenced it, and I thought it was really interesting. $100 million has already been spent. Surrey Police Services is already 42%. I watched Norm Lipinski on Global explaining what the hiring process looks, what they're building. They've had to create a separate IT department that was $40 million or $25 million or something, just because the RCMP are like, no, you can't use ours. It's like they're not even playing together in the sandbox. So there's that. Yeah. But the duplicity, people would assume in their minds, well, this is more of good. It doesn't work that way. This is like having opposing teams try and work somewhat together in an acrimonious situation. But the money. So far, $100 million has been spent. $100 million has been spent. And it will cost, if Brenda Locke is successful in dissolving this, and then you have to give all the severance packages to the 350 officers who have joined the union. Many of them have sold their homes in far-flung places and moved here, put their kids in school. Like, there are people at the other end of this, and there was the prior mayor who literally got in based on doing this. Like, it's so political and messy. So what it sounds like at this point, and I believe you are correct in saying that it's probably 4 times this, but just at this moment to stop what they're doing would be $181 million basically burnt. And what Mike Farnworth said was, we need a report from Surrey Council and Brenda Locke to explain how they plan to pay for that, because the province is not paying $81 million to dissolve what they've been building.
It's a pretzel. It's a big, massive.
It's a pretzel.
It's like, geez.
That's the best punctuation I've ever heard. It's a pretzel.
The budget, just to give people, the budget for the police in Vancouver is 30% of the overall budget. So if it's $1 billion, it's $300 million. If it's $1.6 billion, it's $500 million. It's a lot of money to run your own police force, but they're stuck now. Yeah. And
I wonder if we're headed
towards
the provincial police.
I think she was a bit presumptuous and probably a bit irresponsible to come out on a stage that night and make that 100% commitment. Nobody was asking her to do that night. She had said during the campaign that she would be looking into it. She never made the promise that she would dismantle it. On election night when she won, she said those words on the stage, and I don't think that was necessary because it put her into a bit of a corner politically. so that she now has to get rid of it, and maybe she can't. And so now what does that mean for her?
Yeah.
And obviously,
not to go back to Ken Sim, but it's also like the park board's still in existence. You know what I'm saying?
What? Huh?
Well, when Ken Sim said, first thing I do when I become mayor will be to get rid of the park board. It's like, why paint yourself into a corner?
Yes.
Right? And now they've got the majority that they could dissolve.
Yeah, but why were they moving the logs off the beach again?
Oh, Jesus. What? We're going down the rabbit hole. This is almost like Twitter. Do you think Twitter's going away?
Why does nothing ever change? Why does nothing ever change?
Elon Musk is toying
I thought we wouldn't have anything to talk about anymore, by the way. I thought we'd have nothing to talk about anymore on the show, but God damn it.
We are going to have stuff to talk about. How many are we in? We're like 190
196. It's 196.
196 weeks. 196 weeks we've been doing UnSpun Podcast. It's always something, George. And we might have a new home for us as well. If you don't go to unspunpodcast.com, go to unspunpodcast.com and sign up to get it direct to inbox. You can follow George on the social media platform that may or may not be in existence moving forward. It's called Twitter. He is found at George _Affleck. I'm at Jody Vance, at Jody with a Y, at Jody Vance on Twitter. And, send us your thoughts and ideas. But I'm looking at this debacle that seems to be happening with Elon Musk's purchase of this.
I don't know.
It's crazy.
I have getting into board. I don't think we understand how far along. I think I talked about this last week. Elon Musk's brain is different than ours. He's somewhere else that we don't even understand, to be honest. And even his staff that he's fired, and it's clearly he's a terrible people manager.
The doors. He locked the doors. Terrible.
We've never heard these kind of complaints from other places that he's been the CEO of, which is 4 places, I think, that I can think of. He's been very successful, PayPal, Tesla, Starlink, is that what it's called? And the Boring Company. Well, we'll see. But what I saw a tweet this morning. I thought, that's I'm kind of going, because I'm on Twitter. You're on Twitter all the time. It hasn't really changed much in forever.
For me, some people are like, "Oh my God, this is happening, that's happening." I'm like, "Really? Okay."
It never has changed. It's been the same since I signed up in 2007. I haven't seen, except for the added double from 120 words to 240 words. That's about the only change I can think of that's really happened. And so somebody tweeted out, and I thought it was a good one, is that Craigslist has 20 staff. That's it. And it seems to be operating just fine, and probably about as complicated on the back end as Twitter. I'm sorry, but I'm thinking how, and that's probably what Elon Musk is thinking. In the current form, I don't think we need all these people. And we need to think about what this business is for the future. Sorry, everybody. Yeah. And of course, he's doing it in a terrible way, and he's being very public. He can't stop himself on his own platform that he owns. He's being very provocative. Yeah. But guess what's also happening? And this is, and we'll get into maybe a little bit about the Florida man thing, which I love.
Yeah, that's where we're going next.
The being provocative, he keeps tweeting this record number of people on Twitter. Even though
record engagement
saying they're leaving, I'm like, could tell me you're leaving and just go. Like, I don't care. Like, I'm not leaving. Yeah. It's a still what is it, Matador, whatever the hell that thing's called. I went
Mastodon.
So it's too complicated. I'm like, I don't have time for that.
I have no idea.
It's like a whole.
I loved. Did you listen? Drex posted this morning. I love listening to Drex on Jack. And this morning he went on a rant of like all the people saying farewell to Twitter. I just want to say if this is the last day, and it's like nobody cares. Nobody cares. If you're leaving Twitter. Nobody cares. Twitter's not the real world, people. Like, it's not the real world. Twitter has its advantages. It's a playground. Like Elon Musk said, it's somewhat of a town square. He wants there to be free speech. He might allow that Florida man who's re-announcing to come back on, but Kathy Griffin can't come back on because she made a fool out of him. So but we're here talking about it, and that's what he loves. That's what that is what social media is. It's like why Kanye lost $1.5 billion in one day, but also was everybody's subject of conversation, and that's what Kanye craves, I guess. So let's go to the craving Kanye's of the megalomaniac.
Yes, the Florida man.
Megalomaniac, the front page of the New York Post.
This is
Totally different front page story, and the banner across the bottom that says Florida man runs for or announces run for president. Go to page 26. Go to page 26, and there's like this little sidebar column that calls him like a retiree.
They call him a retiree.
Donald Trump.
Oh my God. Because, for those people who don't know, there's this like ongoing joke in media, I guess, maybe. I'm not sure. Florida man. Like there are a million headlines for some reason.
Yeah.
Florida man this, Florida man that. It's like a meme. And to use that kind of meme with a Trump announcement, I thought that's classic. That is brilliant. Yeah. And to call him a retiree, I mean, that was pretty clever.
I'm trying to find the headline to show our viewers, but it's just like, he's back, but it's starting to seem as though, Ron DeSanctimonious, who won resoundingly in Florida, and now, I mean, the longest election in the history of elections, like the redistricting, the lessons that we got on how things are actually but in the democracy, in the world's greatest democracy, that votes only kind of sort of count over here and there, but not denialism. Like when you win or lose in the system, you win or lose in the system. You can disagree with the electoral college system. You can think it should be a popular vote scenario or whatever it is. But at the end of the day, what we're seeing in the shift from the chaos of disinformation and that almost authoritarian messaging that has been, it would appear, because historically in a midterm election, the sitting president, particularly one with some issues, is resoundingly pushed back upon. And that didn't happen. Like the fact that everything was so tight speaks volumes about
the Democrats. Yeah. Huge. Yeah. And they're a bit paralyzed. I mean, for those who don't understand the American system, it's, it goes Congress, Senate, President, that's the levels of, of the decision making. So a lot of the stuff that the Congress, it's just going to be a chaos it's going to be like City Council in Vancouver the last 4 years. A bunch of stupid motions that'll come on the floor that'll never see the light of day at Senate or in the president's office, because they're just going to be 100% politically motivated and not based on reality or something that's achievable or normal or logical. It's going to be insane. But guess what? It's going to be well covered and probably all over Twitter.
Yeah, probably all over Twitter. What I find so fascinating and such a lesson in Republican talking points that have been, it's been gas prices, inflation, cost of living, As soon as they won that slim majority, immediately was Hunter Biden's laptop. What does Hunter Biden's laptop have to do with the price of gas, guys? But nobody, it's just so, it's such a gong show.
The amount of hearings they're going to have at the Congress, they're going to spend 4 years or 2 years calling,
litigating.
It's just craziness, and committees for that and committees for this. The amount of taxpayer dollars that are going to be used for special, experts, lawyers are going to get rich, and lobbyists are going to get so much money over the next couple of years. They're just rubbing their hands going, thank you very much. I'll take that cash for that, for this.
Was there any one U.S. race? I mean, there's a couple of Canadians here. Was there any one that you were watching closely? Were you invested at all in like Dr. Oz versus Fetterman? Or are you looking at Herschel Walker and Raphael Warnock? Or are you Carrie Lake and...
The Fetterman I was following quite closely. And there's a guy I was kind of alluding to earlier about wearing shorts and a T-shirt. But that's his shtick. But he still put a suit on for the debate and a tie, I think. That was an interesting race, and from a communications point of view, I mean, Dr. Oz's downfall was when he said charcuterie in a stupid commercial he created. I think that's what he said, charcuterie. I thought it was a plate of vegetables. That was just defined from a communications point of view, pretentious.
Crudité. Crudité was what he said.
Crudité, yes.
A plate of vegetables. Look at trying to be able to afford your crudité, and everybody's like, what now? And he misrepresented the grocery chain that is actually in New Jersey versus a Pennsylvania.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't hear that.
Yeah,
so
it wasn't great.
Whammy. But I thought what
Definitely.
Arizona has been very interesting,
Yeah.
and Colorado. So, those three places have been the most interesting. Georgia is going to be, we still have to wait. And that one is going to be close.
For
Vote, though,
for
that's
the one in
5.5. The one in Colorado is less than 0.5, right? So they have to do a recount. So we'll see.
Yeah, they have to do a recount. But the Democrat conceded already today.
Right.
Going back to Arizona, the one thing that I loved about it, this kind of brings it all around: politics, Twitter, and the use of social media. When Carrie Lake lost, I kind of celebrated that as somebody who has worked in television, has the audience. She's a former anchor and she has the audience and she gained the trust of her audience. And now she's gone completely off the rails into disinformation. And she's really using her abilities as a broadcaster to try and make falsehoods truths. And it really upsets me. It pisses me off that she does that.
Yeah.
So she put out a tweet that she was trying to say that Arizonians or whatever, Arizonians aren't, don't fall for any BS. So she was kind of saying like, we need a recount here. This election was rigged or whatever. She was trying to allude to it. But I took it the other way. I'm like, yeah, her BS didn't fly.
I know.
And
I thought her double
best concession speech ever.
Yeah,
and it got like,
yeah. Although, going back to the Florida man and her, they're not going away, and don't underestimate the Florida man. We're going to be in for an ugly couple of years.
I hope Americans are exhausted by the garbage and realizing that nothing's getting better while the chaos of. I did watch the Donald Trump speech, and I went through CNN, MSNBC, and Fox, and I was flipping from one to the next, and all three networks bailed early on his speech. And I thought, okay, that's saying something.
That's something.
When Sean Hannity is like, okay, well, that's enough of that for now.
Let's go see what's happening in the other guy in Florida, which is like Florida men are taking over.
Yeah. Oh, Jesus. All right. That's it for us this week. See you next week on UnSpun Podcast.
Have a good weekend. Bye.